debate, so please, can you look to 7 minutes and no more? Owen Thompson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Now, a few weeks ago, Christine Graham, MSP, and I co-hosted a cost of living support event in Gorebridge in my Midlothian constituency. We invited along energy providers, community groups, food banks and suicide prevention charities. On the day as constituents started arriving, they were able to access the help they needed. A part of me started to look around and think, well, it was a great success, it was brilliant to see so many people there. But then I had to stop myself, because you then start to think, how did we get here? How did we become a society where food banks are normal and where we simply accept that poverty is growing and not falling, or where suicide prevention charities are facing a record number of calls? The fact that we needed to hold the event in Gorebridge at all was an alarming sign that the UK state has failed. And when a country can't guarantee its citizens a decent standard of living with a roof over their heads and heat in their homes or food on the table, that country has failed to uphold its end of the social contract. And the most shocking thing about the crisis is that so much of it is inflicted by this government. For instance, the energy crisis in the UK is far worse than elsewhere because the government has kept energy companies private, ensuring that the money from bills goes towards profit and not the investment that could help ensure security of supply. And the severity of the cost of living in the UK has been exacerbated by this government's own incompetence, with a kamikaze budget sending mortgage rates skyrocketing and the pound crashing, which means less money in people's pockets, and the money that remains is worth less. The truth is, the UK has been the poor man of Europe for years, due to an economy set up to funnel wealth to the super wealthy and people like the current Prime Minister, it has to be said, rather than distributing it via fair ways and supporting those who need it most. And now we're reaping what has been sown. It is a global crisis, there's no doubt about that, but where other societies have been ready to catch the poorest in their safety nets, the UK, that net is a glaring hole. Somehow British exceptionalism has kept its grip in policy making, where we're no longer a particularly well-off society, but a society where a tiny number of people have immense wealth, and the idea that we're exceptional has meant the government has refused to look abroad to follow best practices time and time again. Take the idea of the windfall tax, and while other countries have gotten serious about taxing oil and gas companies and the record profits they've been making, we ignored this for months. Now we're left reeling from a failed Thatcherite experiment and looking down the barrel of austerity 2.0. With an economy so deliberately trashed, there's little option but to put money directly into people's pockets. But the government can't even get that right. I recently met an 89-year-old constituent who can't afford to heat her home because she, like thousands across Midlothian, rely on heating oil. Oil's prices has skyrocketed to the point where my constituent has spent £2,000 on it this year and expects to fork out at least another £1,000 over the coming winter. Yet this government's proposed support package for people using heating oil, £100. Not even enough to get through a tenth of the winter. I will very quickly.
Thank you, friend, for giving way. Constituents in my area of Lanark have written to me about the issue of oil and the fact that the prices have continued to go up and the government's support is frankly woeful. Does he agree with me that the government must do more to support those who are off the grid, especially in rural communities, because they simply have no other choice?
I absolutely do agree with my honourable friend. I mean, the support in place is welcome, and I don't deny that, and I don't think anyone in here would do that. But what needs to happen is much, much more, because there are far too many people being left behind, especially those who are off the grid. At the moment, Mr Deputy Speaker, we're on a sinking ship. The UK's future is not bright, and there's little reason to doubt that our children's economic prospects are only going to become worse than their own. So the question is whether we look around the sinking ship and shrug our shoulders and say, well, it's always been fine up till now, there's no point trying to change it, we'll just be fine. Or we could try to do something different. We don't have to go down with that sinking ship, and certainly for those of us in Scotland, there is a lifeboat. It might be a smaller boat than the one we're currently on, but you get to be its captain, and the folk you share it with have the same direction as you in mind. And once you're out in the open water, you'll realise there's plenty of other wee boats out there that are all the same size as you, and they're working together so that they can weather the storms far better than the lonely old SS Britannia ever could. And that's what the independence promises. It's not an instant fix, but it's the only reasonable path to a better future. And now, in a context where being part of this UK has left us with record inflation and soaring poverty, the idea that Scotland can't afford independence is simply laughable. When Norway became independent in the early 20th century, it was one of Europe's poorest countries. Ireland's era of independence began with a war and destruction, but for them, independence wasn't the problem, it was the solution. Independence allowed them to grab hold of all the economic powers at disposal and to respond to crisis however they wished. Now we look on to both of these as models of stunning economic success. The truth is that as part of the UK, we're in a pretty dire straits. And even if we choose independence, we'll inherit a mess that being part of the UK has left us with. That's not an argument against independence. That's the absolute fundamentals of absolutely why we need it, and we need it now. We can no longer afford to remain a part of this broken union any longer, and the people of Scotland need to be able to have that say, and they need to have it soon. Thank you.
Well done, that was within 7 minutes easily. So that's